So we saw in part one how what the what the majority want has little impact in democracies, with business being far more important, but both dwarfed by elites, the top 10%. So in part one, we saw how grim the situation was. As you can see, totally fair, it's a bleak picture. But knowing the landscape is the first step towards changing it. So here we go. That's exactly what I wanted. Glad to hear it hit the mark. Here's an overview of how activists, unions and grassroots movements across Europe have pushed back, and sometimes won, against elite or pro-rich policy making. Note, have pushed back and sometimes won. So it is establishing, it's doing, we have expectation management there. It's not saying grassroots have triumphed. They've pushed back. Some won back a little of what they'd lost. Fingers crossed. 1. Anti-austerity movements, UK and Germany. In the UK, sustained protests and strikes since 2010, led by trade unions and groups like People's Assembly and UK Uncut. Interesting to, keep in mind who these figures are, since I might want to look into them later to see, are there kindred spirits? There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Helped shift public discourse and pressured governments to reconsider deep cuts in welfare and public services. Okay, so it is so broad. If we're talking about democracy, elites versus the public, well, the public are concerned about 100 things. You might be worrying about 2 of them. That's not the same as what other people are worrying about. So each case should have different strategies. It's a different situation. If we get a sample of situations, we can kind of build up in our mind what the options are. Perhaps, again, we'll see. So this was, they're fighting the austerity, cuts in welfare and public services. That's what they were dealing with. In Germany, the Blockupy movement, United Trade Unions, again, trade unions seem to be overlapping, but this is when it comes to austerity. Social groups and radical leftists, by mass protests, sometimes including civil disobedience, against ECB-imposed austerity. Though often met with heavy police response, it raised awareness and influenced broader public attitudes. Okay. 1. 2. Grassroots, pro-EU activism. People like Pulse of Europe, Germany, and anti-Brexit movements, UK, mobilised citizens in defence of EU membership post-2016. What's that? Full article defending Europe from below. Pro-European activism in Germany and the UK. Okay. While they didn't halt Brexit, they built a strong civic response and shifted discourse towards EU values, showing grassroots capacity to challenge top-tier nationalist elites. 3. Civil society empowerment and elite cooptation. Organisations like European Economic and Social Committee highlights how civil society actors, including unions, NGOs, gain formal policy influence via social and cultural capital, but also how this fosters a new civil society elite that can drift away from grassroots origins. The reference: a European civil society elite, analysing capital drama at the European Economic and Social Committee. Another angle. 4. Multi-layer strategies in Nordic EU context. Many national civil society organisations in countries like Sweden deploy multi-level advocacy, targeting both EU institutions and national governments. They carefully choose forums, like the European Parliament, where citizen-friendly dynamics increase their bargaining power. That kind of rings the bell because we get to vote on that. So if we have issues, we can vote on candidates who agree with us. 5. Counter-populist activism and internal challenges. In Poland, the populist PiS government actively targets independent NGOs as part of its elite replacement strategy, highlighting that pushback from civil society is met with well-organised elite resistance. Similarly, large NGOs in the EU are criticised from the left for becoming part of an establishment civil society, distancing themselves from grassroots authenticity. I think there was some mention of that somewhere else as well, distancing from grassroots. What works and what doesn't. According to social movement impact theory, movements can produce individual empowerment, activists gain skills, solidarity, cultural change, shift public narrative, symbols, institutional political gains, if they reach key leverage points. Successful movements combine WNC framing, worthiness, unity, numbers, commitment, adapting within policy windows, using European Parliament opportunities for national crises. I'm not familiar with a lot of this jargon, so I just had a quick look. So social movement impact theory is a subfield within social movement theory, focusing on analysing the effects that social movements have on society and the factors that contribute to those effects. It examines how movements influence individuals, institutions, cultures, and political systems. But while political impacts have been heavily studied, the impact on other levels can be equally significant. So that makes sense, that it doesn't, you're not oversimplifying, you're aware that there are multiple levels at play. So which one is appropriate? Try and measure them, see, did it have an impact? Did it achieve what it was trying to? So, there's a lot more here. So that's another, due to the complexities of measuring and attributing impact, social movement impact theory is considered a less studied area within the broader field. That would kind of be the gut feeling, but again, not knowing anything, you'd want to kind of see what are the issues with trying to measure stuff. Impact theory also explores the factors that contribute to movement success or failure in achieving its goals and influencing society. So anyway, that's social movement impact theory, because otherwise it's roughly what the name suggests, but the multi-dimension aspect of it is what'll stick in my head. WNC is similar, having multiple factors. So having multiple factors. So here you have, it's a framework for understanding how movements communicate their cause to outsiders. So you are communicating their cause to outsiders. So the key phrase, influencing perceptions and potentially increasing mobilization. So again, this is how social movements strategically display worthiness, unity, numbers, and commitment. So worthiness, demonstrating that the movement's cause is morally just and aligned with societal values. So you want to say, we are doing good, we are good. Branding, I suppose. Unity, projecting a sense of cohesion and shared identity among movement participants. Highlighting the large-scale participation and broad support for the movement. Commitment, signalling the dedication and resolve of movement members, often through actions like sustained protests or civil disobedience. Okay, so that's WNC. And based on Charles Tilly's concept, as we have on that little box there. Bottom line, Europe has plenty of inspiring examples of resistance to elite dominance, from anti-austerity marches and pro-EU rallies to strategic NGO lobbying. The progress is uneven and elite backlash is real. The evidence is clear. Ordinary citizens and grassroots groups continue to shape policy and public discourse when they organise smartly. Okay. And we were given some frameworks, WNC and so on, about organisation design, things to keep in mind. So then I kind of asked about YouTube videos like this one. And so, it suggested main title options. So being aware of what we discussed. I said if I made a video on what we've discussed, I can show what exactly I asked, since it's not long. YouTube video title on the chat we had. The first part, when we talked about the two papers and about Europe. Video 2 will be about what people can do. And you can see here, one of the options it said was democracy for the rich, what the data really shows, which is the title that I used in video 1. I'll ask for the title for video 2 and use that for this video. See how that does. Then I asked, thought about what can be done in Ireland. Niches to target, partners around Europe, classic books. And here's the response. Targeted niches to build momentum. 1. Poverty and basic income coalitions. Leverage EAPN Ireland, a strong national network, 160 plus. Linking with EAPN Europe. EA is, I think, Europe Against Poverty Network, to push for progressive social inclusion and social rights implementation. Workers' cooperatives and social enterprises highlights examples like Rethink Ireland. Rethink Ireland backed worker-owned care co-ops staffed by migrant women. These show inclusive economics that can scale. Disability rights and independent living. Learn from Independent Living Movement Ireland, ILMI. Their member-driven conversations about activism and change offers lessons in grassroots strategy for rights-based advocacy. I might try and get hold of that later on. European partnerships and strategies. Link with pan-EU networks. Expand ties with EAPN Europe. Tapping in Brussels lobbying. Data on the pillar of social rights and cross-country campaigns on poverty reduction. Collaborate with Nordic Dutch equality movements. Countries like Denmark, Sweden and the Netherlands have strong egalitarian traditions. Shared projects, comparative research and joint capacity building should amplify outcomes. Stronger together. Engage with social cooperative and solidarity economic hubs. Learn from Italy, Spain and France, where worker-owner mutuals are stronger, especially in care, agriculture and energy. 3. Essential reading to inform strategy. I think I had mentioned books. The Spirit Level. I have that, and there was an updated version, which I haven't looked at yet, but I have, with more recent data. As far as I remember, it shows that if you look at inequality, that alone is linked to a wide range of things, far more than I would have suspected. So essentially, the greater the inequality, the greater the 5, 6, 7, 8 bad outcomes, which I wouldn't have thought were correlated or were similar. It's a very interesting book that way. The Inequality of Wealth by Liam Byrne. I had a look on Amazon. My basic method is I look at Amazon and I basically see various people, how many people have commented, and is it a high rating. That tends to work. So this one, there weren't that many reviews, and they weren't great. So again, that's not a foolproof method, but so I didn't get that. I got that one with right beside me, and take a while to get through because I just got it. A tactical handbook. Learn from global movements and use evidence-based approaches to scale impact. Democracy, a user's guide by Josh Sheldon. I haven't looked into that yet because it'll take me a while to get through this, and I should read the follow-on book for that also. So there's no point just adding another book which I'm not going to read to my pile. But I have no excuse. I've got the material, got my homework. Practical next steps. Policy advocacy. Use EAPN's research to push budget and social policy demands. European angle. Work with EAPN Europe for pan-EU campaigns. Pilot social models. Launch worker cooperative pilots in regional hubs. Link with solidarity economy networks in Europe. Build skill sharing circles. Host webinars with Nordic Dutch egalitarian groups. Deepen alliances via EU-funded civil society programs. Mobilise public opinion. Run spirit-level inspired awareness campaigns in Irish media. Coordinate with UK and EU trusts who supported the book. This kind of resonates with me, since I already have the spirit level. I like that way of looking at things, so that seems doable to basically for me to read that, think about that, and then see where that leads. Activate local democratic innovation. Pilot participatory budgeting or worker co-ops in towns. Use Sheldon's guide to compare across EU cities. Ooh, I haven't gotten the Sheldon's book, but again, I can just chat with ChatGPT and ask me to give a summary of Sheldon thoughts on what his methods are, and so on. So you can kind of progress even without the actual book. Though, that's also what I'm checking. How reliable is the AI? So when the AI gives a summary, is that a reasonable summary? Is it biased? What version of the book am I being given by the AI? Time will tell. Okay, so here's where we were. Why this combo works. Niche focus builds credibility and shows concrete wins, e.g. worker-owned care models. European partnerships bring technical backing, political weight, and shared legitimacy. Classic books sharpen analysis, frame narratives, and help activist coalitions argue from shared evidence. Tactical guides, like Lisa Muller's, offer real-world tools to connect passion with results. So, I've just gotten the book, I haven't read it yet, but that and spirit level seem doable, though it'll take a while. It's not going to be a day. I actually went to the EAPN website and I just downloaded the data, the report. So they have resources. So they have actual data as opposed to, I strongly feel this. Based on what? So we'll come back to that next or later. Actually, I got a comment from the first video, which was interesting because he was bringing up the democracy versus republic angle. So, I'm stumbling into big areas where I'm not that knowledgeable. So then I was going, ooh, that is interesting. Have I missed something? Am I being really stupid? So, you know, if you notice big blunders, please comment, uh, point point that out. Then I can just, again, probably with ChatGPT or some AI, progress with that. See, oh, actually, yeah, good point. I totally missed that. So here, you know, if you're talking about, oh, yes, the elites want this, but what the people want isn't done. But there's the balance between, do I want what the masses want, or do I want a system where I follow the rule of law, like a constitution? That isn't the same. So how do you balance those two? Which is, you know, a classic issue debated for centuries, if not millennia. So I'll probably create a couple of videos, or at least one, on those issues. You know, the things that I suddenly realized afterwards that, oh, actually, this is interesting. I'd like to add that part. So just a little correction video. And then I can move on to, say, looking at what I saw from EAPN network reports, and actually some UN reports as well. There are lots of high quality reports out there. So a little look at those. Till then.